Hello, everyone. This is Scott with another Saturday service. There's no tarot cards or any of that sort of stuff this week. I'm going to lead with a little bit of personal story and some of the things that I've written. So I'm pointing at my screen and I'm going to go through something that I've written and read it to you. And that will be my Saturday service for this week. So enjoy the artwork I did a while back. This one really represents spirit and the crown chakra, which I will talk about in today's message. So let's see. This week was pretty busy for me. So welcome to another Saturday service. This is Scott. I'm a minister and priest in a pagan and witchcraft tradition, and a bunch of other things. So this includes artist and writer, but most importantly, a human being with a heart in the world. This week, the saying, easier to catch a boulder, echoed around in my head a lot as I drove, wrote, spoke, and worked. Saturday and Sunday came and went, and I could not sit down to record a service for the week. And I originally started this little program to follow the guidance that I got on my own spiritual path and putting myself out there in the world. Um, but I don't always have the time for it. So my services are mostly free when I do this and are inspired by things like the messages you might get at your local Unitarian Universalist church. Um, you know, not quite a priest at the pulpit, but I am a priest. So I do have a little bit of ministry that I like to give to the world, even though I might not be the standard priest that you're expecting. I did my best to separate myself when I was recording these, from the influencer culture because I don't want to pander to you so that I can pander to an algorithm so that I can make money and get likes and all those sorts of things. Well, those are very helpful because that's the nature of the beast that we're working in. Um, I thought I'd do this to the best of my ability, and I could use the technology at hand for my own purposes, which is to create a connection while bringing messages from my skill sets and relationships to create the space on the internet where hopefully I could get you to pay attention for longer than 30 seconds without the drama of flailing about on the internet with an honest message and clear guidance. So I think I've done pretty good. It's not always possible for me to record one of these videos. I do my best to keep the commitment because I think a commitment requires dedication to the relationship, for whatever the relationship is. In this case, it's with, making these videos, putting out a good message. Spirituality is about doing as much as it is about being, and like any good relationship, this one specifically with ourselves and our personal cosmological understandings of the world we live in, when we don't tend it, it withers, it slumbers or fades. Obviously, it's not gone, it's just unused. So, this week, I want to talk a little bit about the spiritual relationship with yourself and if this connects to your greater world, your spirituality, magical practices, or religion, etc. Great. But I don't want to focus, but I just want to focus in on yourself for a minute. Um, Inside of you are two wolves. No, I'm just kidding. There are many parts of us and our consciousness, but I just need to be funny for a second. Like that's just me. I like to bring levity, right? Um, you are a conscious being operating in a conscious body, and these two things are part of the same being, but they're not the same consciousness. They're not the same being. So your body has responses and reactions and hungers and fears. And as you are a consciousness and you have a relationship with those reactions and responses, it's entirely up to you whether you choose to respond to them or react to them or not. And how you do that, whether that's personally healthy or unhealthy, also entirely up to you. But ultimately, it's always your choice. My family member and I had a conversation in the last couple of years where we were discussing thoughts in the head, and I really had to say out loud to them, if it's happening in your head, it's yours. These are your thoughts. And it was very startling to me that that was not clear to them, um, that that was a new concept, that the thoughts in their brains and the feelings in their body were their own. um, it still boggles me a little bit, but it's just to really understand with that we're a consciousness and we're a body, and these have different responses, feelings, and even kind of different layers of consciousness. They respond differently. They react differently. Um, we might be like, I'm fine in our body. And you're like, ooh, no, I'm not. Like, and you're like, what is that? Right? Like that's this body and consciousness and how they work together. Um, and these two overlap and they make part of who we are. We can say we're the same being and they are us. And also, it sometimes feel like it's a different response where it's not us. For me, the duality of the body and the consciousness is very similar to our spirituality. So, which is, if we could just do a little cosmology here, the body and the consciousness are like the lower self and the middle self, like, like your consciousness and your subconscious, right? And our spirituality is often regulated to this higher self or this greater self. Some would say upper self. Although I would say, arguably, our spirituality should really be encompassing of the whole self, the higher, lower, and middle. That's just my personal perspective. Um, but when we think about this higher self, we think about this higher self as being connected to all things, or connected to God, or connected to greater spirituality. And this is often modeled or popularized in, you know, however westernized, in the chakra system, specifically the crown chakra called Sahasrara, I'm going to butcher it, or the thousand petaled lotus. And I like to use the crown chakra, which is the center above our heads, to illustrate why I think this is part of our consciousness, but also separate, because this energy center is what we call transpersonal. It's outside of the physical body. And I think it's there for a reason. And whether it's an actual energy center and you understand how energy centers are connected to organs in the body in other medical systems and in other energy systems beyond Western culture, you understand that there's a reason that it's transpersonal and it's outside the body. So this is my opinion, right? So it helps us to connect to that which is beyond ourself, right? It's a gateway, right? It's a gateway to God or the universe or whatever it is you choose to believe that's greater than yourself. So it's no way am I telling people at all what to believe beyond themselves. I'm just saying what is greater, right? So this layer of the energy system, this energy center, this crown chakra illustrates what our spirituality should really be about getting beyond ourselves through ourselves, right? So when we get to that place, we connect to the greater spirit of things, right? Because when we're really self-centered and we're only thinking about us and only our problems and only the hard tunnel of like whatever our struggles are, we lose that sense of greater connection to things. Yeah. So there are lots of things that we can say about the chakra system and Western esotericism and the way things change from culture throughout time. And, I let that conversation happen with other people in other spaces. What I like to think of is this in context of what I'm talking about today. When we're talking about energy, which is beyond ourselves, we're talking about things which are beyond our control, period. And this is why we live in a universe of consent, mythologically speaking, and hopefully physically speaking, because we do want to live in a world of consent. Uh, that we're speaking about that we're in relationship with everything else. So to have a good relationship with everything else, with anything really, we're talking about consent. And this center, this crown chakra, this transpersonal part of us, that's a layer of our consciousness that's beyond ourself, indicating of a gateway of our belief systems when it comes to our spiritual practices, that it's there in order to transport us beyond ourselves so that we can surpass our egos and our narrow focuses to be connected to this greater thing. And I don't know about you, but what it feels like in the world today is a massive self-centeredness. So constantly moving a person, a figure, an issue of importance into the center of everything and trying to make it greater than anyone or anything else. It's about this particular issue, and everyone else needs to be quiet because this is the most important thing. My religion, my personal, whatever it is, all of these sorts of things. And I'm not saying that any of these things aren't important. Arguably, many of these things need to be put in the center, but that center space that we're talking about, uh, in society, you know, in what our society sees as important, it's not a small confined space. Our social and cultural centers are as wide and as spacious as we make them. Our beliefs about that cultural and social center expand or retract. They're inclusive, which is expansive, or exclusive, which is contracting. And this is where another energy center comes into play, speaking of chakras and energy centers, which would be our heart chakra. This energy center is associated with the heart qualities that really connect us to our emotional states of love. And this is not really to say it's just about your parents or your partners, right? But it's our capacity for love for all things. And really, we do have a capacity for love for all things. And it only requires the letting go of the hard points of ego, right? Like we can be in a place of love. It's not like, I don't know, many spiritual figures haven't talked about this like ad nauseum over thousands of years, and that it is the heart and center of many modern religions. So, um, you will see in a lot of these systems when we're talking about these mythological figures, we're talking about these religious figures, you'll see this sort of connection between the crown and the heart. Their heads might be glowing and their hearts might be aflame. That's a common one you'll see, right? This is not accidental, and this is not just a fantastical rendition of someone's belief. In my experience, this is actually a true illustration of the connection between the heart, or the individual, and the crown, the spirit of the greater whole in our collective. And these are together in the body. And this other being that we walk around with these personal desires and agendas and beliefs, that this we're complex, right? We're not just like, I'm just this individual and it's just me and like all of this belief and this body and I'm in control of all these sorts of things. It's like, what a horrible existence for you, right? Being human isn't easy, but don't make it harder on yourself. We're part of nature, the body. We're part of something greater, the spirit, and we're a personality that's attempting to figure it all out and see how it all goes together for ourselves in relationship to everything else. And that's you, that's me, that's us, that's the person that's trying to find those centers to include these things so that we understand that we do belong, that we're here, right? And that there's space for us. I think that these are three centers in the body. Like I could point out many versions of this from, like Eastern medicine to conversations with my friend, whose grandfather was a teacher, about the three bowls of the body and modern neo-paganism. Or there's lots of ways that we can talk about these. We can talk about the personality and the lower self and the higher self in psychology. There's lots of different ways. We can just talk about the skull and the chest and the hips. These all contain vital things. These three centers are there, right? We're just saying, I'm just saying, your body, you're a spirit, part of a greater spirit, and you're a heart. You're an individual, you're a personality, trying to figure out how these things all come together, right? You're not alone in this, figuring out or seeking the space for these things for yourself, for those you love to come together. So we're not here to be experts or accomplished at anything other than navigating these moments of breath and blood, flesh and bone, stars and soil, hands and hearts, spaciousness for each other. So this week I'd like to remind you that the best thing that we can give ourselves in any moment, but especially in critical moments in our lives, when we're really pushing towards our goals or fighting, together for collective rights or just fighting to survive, right? That even in those tightest moments, we need space. We need what we call spaciousness. We need to understand that there's space for us, that we belong, right? You belong. Spaciousness in Buddhism, we might look at it as an openness, because it really, this you hear that a lot in Buddhist circles. It's like an openness or a potential or a loss of inherent sense of self, a lack of clinging to desire, right? That's a point that can often be confused by non-Buddhist. This lack of desire is not saying that you don't have feelings or you don't want things, right? But it's just that they don't control you, right? That's like my really generic version of it. Spaciousness in modern context, more culturally relevant to everyone, I think, although I think non-attachment is really great and we can all benefit from it. Um, when we think of spaciousness in modern context, we're really talking about letting go of rigid ideologies and making space for multiple points of view and people. It's really about inclusivity, and by creating more space in our social structures that allow for things to coexist. So coexist is my word for the week. Could be spaciousness, but I really want to say coexist. And I'm not talking about the trite hippie Buddhist bumper sticker that you might see in your drives, but the greater sense of the word, and that this is a coexistence that we live in, and that it doesn't belong to any one group or people, right? It doesn't belong to the loudest, right? It doesn't even belong to humankind, honestly, because we're on a planet of a great diversity of life. In order for that to survive right now, we need spaciousness. Coexistence does not happen without spaciousness. So ask yourself this week, how do I make space, even if might not agree with it or for whatever may be happening right in front of me right now? How do you make space for it, right? Acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It just means I accept that this is happening. I don't have to agree with it, but it's not about me, right? This is about them and what's happening for them, right? So how do I create that spaciousness? How do I listen without inserting my own thoughts into that process? How do I tap into my crown chakra and my heart chakra and put myself in the more loving awareness that there is a greater action happening here, a greater spirit that I am a part of, and what can I do with that perspective? How do I listen without inserting? How do I make space for other views? How do I tap into my spirit and my heart to ask what's really seeing, and to be a part of what's really happening before me? Because these two pieces really help me to be embodied in what's happening in this moment. Those are my questions for you this week. I leave you with the words of Parker Palmer, founder of the Centers for Courage and Renewal, on holding space. And I quote, "Holding space for someone means to be present without judgment, to listen with your whole being, to offer your full attention and support, and to allow them to go through whatever they need to go through without trying to fix it, change it, or advise them." Parker Palmer is a renowned writer, educator, and activist, and he's a great human being in the world, and I really love his work. Um, So questions and statements, and I leave you with those this week. That is my Saturday service. If you are on the Patreon, you can read some of the key points and aspects of Holding Space by Parker Palmer. I've included those in the subscription content, as well as read the entirety of it, of this complete talk in text that I've read to you today. You can visit patreon.com/Scott K. Smith. That's SCOTT, the letter K, the last name SMITH, all one word. If you like this video, it does help me if you like it, if you share it, if you respond, if you have questions, tell me what you think. You know, how do you hold space? How can you integrate spaciousness into your life? What is spaciousness to you? Yeah, that's my Saturday service. Scott K. Smith, thank you so much for watching. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be.